So we're going live with Pocket Kings. Best way to go live that I know. And okay, it's weird. I was having this weird feedback last time that I was streaming. It was a few seconds ago, and so I cut off and I went and listened to it, and it didn't show up on the stream itself. And then now I'm not getting that. So it must have been something about when I was broadcasting. Um, so we're gonna try and play some tables. Um, Now, in this situation, I raised pre-flop. I got two callers. I bet the flop. He called. I'm thinking he could. He's gonna check back with a queen. He'll bet when he has a heart. So I'm definitely gonna call here one time, and then I think in most cases he's probably going to check back if he has um, not a good hand. Yeah, like a queen. Okay. Um, so if he would have bet again there, I was leaning towards folding. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to play between 3 and 4 tables. Oh, we can get a table right here. Now, when you're selecting a table, there's not a lot of really good stack sizes here, but that's not too bad. Um, the best thing to do is look for a high players to the flop percentage because that generally indicates that it's not a good table. And what we're going to do is we're just going to join waiting lists on those tables. We're not going to go in and like try to get a table in a place where maybe we won't get as good a table. I would rather wait for a better table. Now in this flop we have two overcards and we've got a runner diamond draw. I don't expect him to be too far ahead of us. And now that he's checked behind, he may fold some aces here. If he hits an ace, we may get another bet on the river. And here, I think we're just going to check and give him the pot. Because I'm thinking he probably has an ace and he may call one other time. Yeah. Players at this level tend to call, so I'm not going to try to bluff him off an ace. If we were at a level where I felt like more players would fold, I would start opening up and two-barreling there and betting twice. Um, but in this case, I think people call behind with an ace there too often. So he's either got a 10 that he picked up on the turn, which he's not going to fold, or he's calling too often with an ace and some under pairs like nines and eights, things like that. So I'm not really in the place where I'd like to be two barreling that. I would have liked him to pair his ace though. Okay, so we are sitting at that table, but we haven't posted our big blind yet. When you come to a new table, don't post your big blind immediately because first of all, if you have the opportunity, you might be able to watch something about the table and pick up some information. But otherwise, it's just not profitable. You know, if I pay a big blind here and then I pay a small blind next hand, that's 3 cents that I have to pay, and I get to see a total of 6 hands. Whereas if I um, pay on the dealer button, that's 2 cents I have to pay to see 4 hands. That is exactly the same. So posting the big blind on the dealer button isn't necessarily a bad play. Um, I usually don't do it, but posting it anywhere else is not as profitable, especially since the reason why I pay the big blind and the small blind is so that I can get to the dealer button. The dealer button is the most profitable position to play at. The reason for that is the dealer gets to act last after everyone else for the rest of the hand. So they get the most information about what everyone else is doing before they have to do anything. This guy still could hit a 6. But yeah, you see, we just checked and folded there. You know, I mean, we had a pair, but it wasn't a good pair. Okay, so he min raises a lot. I think in this case, I'm just going to... I'm kind of torn between 3-betting and just calling behind. I think I'm going to call behind, hoping to... maybe if he shoved, then I would end up... he calls, and then I'll re-isolate. But now we've got a good flop. Definitely going to call the all-in. He's got an open-ended straight draw. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He wins it. I don't know. If I 3-bet there, he might not end up calling. But still, we got the chips in with the best odds. We were the favorite to win that hand, and we had pot odds to call. So it was still profitable the way we played it. Now, in this case, against the original raiser, we might 3-bet. If he calls, then we get a chance to bet the flop, and he folds. You know, we could say that that might be more profitable, but the hand played out well for us. It just, we didn't hit the card. And that's one of the things about playing this game. For you who watch my Go stream, when you make a good move and a good move and a good move, and your opponent makes bad moves repeatedly, the more you repeat that, the more you're going to say, okay, I'm going to end up winning this game. However, in poker, I could make all the best moves in a hand and lose the hand. As long as my opponent has 1% equity, he can win the hand. Now, I wanted to 3-bet here because this guy's been raising a lot, but I have 2 strong hands here. This one I'm going to just call because ace-queen is not really all that fun for a 3-bet. You're not really in a good spot where you want to get re-raised. You know, you don't want to get 4-bet. In this case, I'm just going to call. In this case here, I'm going to bet. And over here, I'm not entirely sure if I'm ready to get stacks in yet. This guy was the original raiser, so he may have like ace king or something like that. So I'm gonna go with that. I don't see him having an 8 too often. Could have queens, you know, that would just be a cooler. Here I'm just gonna fold. We don't have anything. There's too many people in the pot. Okay, so he was just bluffing. So we're gonna take a note on him, because if he's willing to take 2 stabs, he's probably prone to bluffing, which means when we get a hand, it's going to be better for us to just check to him. When people limp in, they generally have a weak hand. So we're going to raise to try to isolate. In this case, because we're out of position, if somebody raises, we're going to 3-bet because we want to take the lead in the hand. So we got 2 callers here. Not the best flop, but I'm definitely going to call 4 cents. I may raise because the 4 cents doesn't look all that strong. Let's go ahead and do that. Since he called, I'm just going to call. There's a lot of good cards for us on the turn, like this one. And in this case, I'm definitely going to be raising because I want to try to build a pot. But I'm not going to raise too much because his stack size isn't all that much. So let's see. Let's raise to 25. In this case, we're going to check. If he bets, I think we're going to call. He could have a lot of flush draws. He could definitely have a queen. And here, I'm just, if he bets here, I really don't see what we can beat. He'd have to be bluffing a huge amount for me to really want to call here. And, I put him down as tight before. When this green means he's tight, means he doesn't play a lot of hands. It means when he bets, he usually has it. I think I'm going to give him credit here, because his bet's a little bit bigger than it was on the turn relative to the size of the pot. So I'm pretty sure he had a flush draw and he hit his flush. Now we were getting about 3-1 pot odds. Here I favor 3-betting the ace-jack, because he could call with ace-10, ace-9, and if he has ace-queen or above, he's probably going to raise again. So it's kind of halfway between a value bet and a bluff. If he calls, I'm probably ahead. If he raises like he does here, I'm probably behind. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold it here. I'm just thinking he's ahead of ace-jack there. And I've got him tight and aggressive against somebody who's like 4-betting all the time and, you know, stuff like that. Ace-jack is great. I'll get all in. If he has, you know, ace-queen or queens, kings, or aces, you know, whatever. It just happens. So let's see. Are we on the waiting list for any other tables? Yes, we're on the waiting list here. We're going to fold. This we're going to raise, try to steal the blinds. This is kind of a semi-bluff. We could have a better hand. He could call with queen 9, jack 9. He goes all in. We probably don't have a better hand. I'm going to think for a second and then give that one up. He raised 4x. When they raise 4x, that generally indicates a stronger hand. So you give him a little bit more credit. It's not always the case, but at this level, it's like they're like, oh, I've got aces. I should raise more. And it gives you a good indication if they're raising, you know, 3x, 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 and then all of a sudden they raise to 4x. That small deviation actually means a lot. So right now we're just trying to keep tabs on the table, trying to figure out if we can find anybody that calls too much, anybody that bluffs too much, those types of things, and take advantage of that. And the way you take advantage of somebody who calls too much is you you bet more with your medium to strong hands, kind of your medium strong hands. Like, you know, there's not a lot of people that I would take ace king if I pair my king on the flop and bet 3 streets. But if I notice somebody will call all the way with any pair, all of a sudden, you know, let's look at this board. You know, I've got a king, so he'll call with all his 7s, all his 10s, and all his worst kings. Well, I'm in a really good spot. You know, I haven't seen him raise a lot. Queen 9 is way behind his range, and I'm out of position, so there's just no reason to play that hand. You know, you're like, oh, I got a queen and a 9. That's almost a 10. It's real easy to talk yourself into things like that. In this case, I am going to 3-bet. Usually, if I've got suited cards, I'll call, and if I've got unsuited, I'll 3-bet. This is kind of turning them into a little bit of a bluff. There aren't a lot of hands that he'll call with that are better, but it just kind of, balances my range. It's like every time I call, I don't have king jack, and every time I raise, I don't have king jack. Um, so I want to take the king jack off and raise with it. Are we going to do 5 tables? We'll see. And 3-bet with it because I actually don't like that hand as much. If it's suited, then I have more potential to hit a flop or to get away from a flop cheaply. With King Jack, I really don't have that same potential, so I'm going to just use it as a kind of a semi-bluffing hand. Pocket deuces. Pocket deuces can make you more money than pocket aces. And one of the reasons for that is when you have pocket aces, people usually aren't going to get into a huge pot with you when you have them crushed. But if you have pocket deuces and a deuce comes on the flop, it's a very disguised hand. So you can have a very strong hand, and they have a medium strength hand that they call down all the way with. So that's why if you get in a big pot with pocket aces, a lot of times you're actually behind. Whereas if you get in a big pot with pocket deuces, well, you better be ahead, because if you didn't catch a 2, you should be out of that hand. So they're very easy to get away from, whereas people get enamored with aces, and they're like, oh. And yes, aces are 81% to win, 82% to win pre-flop against one other player. However, when you take that 82%, what you then want to do is win the most you can when you're winning and get rid of them when you're losing more often. And the more often you can do that, the more you're going to be able to maximize your aces. This is a really good flop for us. Not the awesomest flop. If it would have been 3 hearts, then it would be awesome. But it's not. We're just going to try to steal the blinds here. This guy seems pretty tight, so we're just going to raise every time we get the opportunity in the small blind, hoping to grab a big blind. Now in this case, if he has a king or a jack, he's not folding. So I'm just going to check behind, and if I hit an ace or a queen, then that's good. And most of the time he's ahead. So if he bets here 2 cents, I think we're ahead here more than 1 in 14 times. Okay, but pocket 8s. I don't know. Sometimes people will do that with, like if he had queen 9 or something like that and was also drawing to a gut shot, then they'll hit that. They'll be like 2 cents. For him, his min bet was a weak made hand, so we're gonna look at that. We're gonna type a note, but we have pocket kings, so we've got more important things. So we're definitely gonna 3-bet this ace jack here, especially considering we have a caller. We're gonna open the kings. We're gonna open a 7 suited. This is a speculative hand. So we got a fold here, and we're in position. Now I like to check back when I have an ace with the runner nut flush draw, because it gives me an opportunity to realize some of that equity, and it also gives me the opportunity to check back from time to time. I think a third of the pot will be good. If he's if he didn't catch anything, we're gonna bet here because we have a gut shot and 2 overcards. Okay, now we got 2 callers. So, but we did pick up a double gut shot. So we could hit a 4 or an 8 or an ace, and possibly a 7, although the 7's not really all that great because then an 8 hits a straight. So we're going to bet again. This is kind of like a, okay, not really all that great. It was another chance at a bluff. I'm just gonna call here because I have position, and I'll probably call this flop as well. Now if he bets, yeah, 6. Not gonna get a 6 to fold. Definitely gonna call that. And I'm gonna call this turn too. Now let's see. Do I know this guy? No. Here I'm just gonna fold. Here I could 3-bet this, but I think I'm gonna fold. And he's betting pretty quickly. So I think I'm just gonna give him credit this time. And I'm just gonna get out of that hand. We'll keep an eye on him, see if he likes to raise when he's in the small blind and how he continues. We're definitely going to try to steal the blinds because Lionheart's pretty tight. Gonna raise the jacks because they look alright. We're gonna raise 10-9 if we get the chance, and we're gonna call behind. In this case, we're just gonna overlimp. Now we flop top set. This is a good place to check behind, except it's a pretty wet board. So if he has a drawing hand, he may actually do that. So let's these little click back raises, they indicate that he has some kind of a hand. We've got 2 overcards and a gut shot here. And he likes his hand. So we're just going to, let's see how much the pot is. 91? Yeah. Just going to jam. Yeah, so he had a good draw. Oops. And we lost transmission. Nope, not that. Okay. And we won the hand. Did everybody see that? Did you see that? We've got good pot odds here. Okay, so here, let's go ahead and bet 2/3 pot, see if he'll call. And we're going to fold here. Fold. So that was just a, you know, top set versus, he had open-ended straight flush draw, I think. Or at least a gut shot straight flush draw. Oh, we're hitting some cards here. And fold. And fold. And fold. And not gonna fold. Hopefully this guy will 3-bet us. I'm willing to get in for 75 cents here. Fold, fold. This is the easiest part. I don't have cards. I fold. Now, it's when you have cards that you got to figure out what to do with it. You know, what do you do with the cards? So he clicked back here. I'm getting 3-1, and I've got 10-1 implied odds. The click back indicates he probably has a strong hand, so I'm, you know, top pair, I'm definitely going to get it all in. He might overplay ace king or, you know, stuff like that. But I'm not going to raise here. I'm just going to call because that opens up the most potential for him to end up bluffing. And he could have, yeah, he could have aces. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. Well, I was just going to play 4 tables, but it seems like 6 is working out so far. I'll cut one out if now I'll definitely raise this if he doesn't raise to 5x. And I will tell you, these 5x raises usually indicate that it's an actual hand that these players have. Um, it's a huge tell when they change their bet sizing based on how their hand is. Now I'll change my bet sizing based on the player I'm playing against. For instance, if somebody's calling way too much, then I'll take, ace nine and above and raise them 5 or 6x because they'll call me. Um, but the reason I do that is because they'll call me with any ace. So, you know, and let's say they're also raising their ace king, ace queen, and sometimes ace jack. Well, that means that I'm getting calls from all of their bad aces, and they're going to raise pre-flop so I can get away from it when they actually have a good ace. It's a great position. Um, and I have their range dominated. So I'm going to raise to 5 or 6x with ace nine and above against certain players, but I'm not going to raise a certain amount with a certain hand and a certain amount with a certain different hand. Um, in this case, I'm just going to check fold. Even though he limped pre-flop, that actually hits. He could be 7-10 or 7-jack or a bunch of different hands that can hit that flop. That would limp in pre-flop. Also some pocket pairs. So that's not really a good flop for my hand. There's not a lot of good flops for ace deuce in the first place. We've got a gut shot, so we're going to call and see what he does on the turn. If he checks, I'm probably going to bet because I checked pre-flop, and a lot of people do like to take one stab at the flop. When he raises back, now I have to ask myself, okay, I have to pay 4 cents into 20. That's 5 to 1. Can I get another 20 cents if I hit my hand? Now, consider I could be drawing dead. If the 10 is a heart, I'm not all that happy. So overall, I think I'm still going to be folding here. I think he has at least a queen, possibly a jack that he's actually overplaying. But I'm really not in a great place. And you're 10 to 1 to hit a gut shot straight. The king is probably no good. At least I would not be happy to have a king fall because you could have some straights complete and some stuff like that. I'm going to check behind because it's not the greatest flop for me. And now I'm going to bet 2/3 pot and hope he has a diamond or a 10. I could have played that ace 9 hand. And now I'm just going to bet 1/3 of the pot. See if I can get a call from a 10 or a 4 or something like that. Oh, and he hit 2 pair. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to bet not quite 3x. Now, we want to see, because the yellow means passive, and he's actually tight passive. So in this case, if he re-raises, we may actually just fold this hand. If he calls, he could have ace queen or ace jack. In this case, we're out of position. We've got a gut shot. It's really not a great spot. And ace 7. Okay. Well, or he could just fold. Who's the guy? I was going to take a note about somebody, and then I didn't because I had pocket kings and I forgot. I think it was this guy, but I don't remember what the note was. Time to check the scoreboard. We started at 80.94, and now we are at 82.19 for a total of $1 and some odd cents up. 16, what was it, 84.19? 82. Man, that was a terrible check of the scoreboard. 82.19. Okay, 82.19. And we were at 80.94, so that's $1.25. $1.25. Pocket fours. I like low pocket pairs because they're easy to get away from. If I can see a cheap flop, that's fine. This guy over here, now remember, he was in the small blind and he like triple barreled us, or double barreled, and we folded the turn. So I'm pretty sure, considering I see him on 2 tables, that he's more tight aggressive. We're definitely going to bet this flop. A lot of hands could miss the flop, so we're just going to go ahead and take out their equity. Meaning if he has 2 overcards to our 4s, he's 24% to hit by the river. So there's no real reason to, first of all, show weakness and have him go, oh, this is a great spot to bluff, because it actually is. You know, my 4s can't hold up to a lot of betting. So it's a good idea to just take a stab, take away his potential to hit anything, or to represent any of that board. My screen quality is not great. I don't exactly know what to do about that, because I'm just going to check fold here because it's kind of a wet board. We didn't hit. I could have let out, but it's not really all that great of a flop to c-bet. He can call with a lot of different things. And my ace is going to fold the turn anyway if he calls. So I just didn't consider it a great spot. This is a great spot to 3-bet because I actually have a hand. Now, it's a great spot to 3-bet when you have a hand, but then that means if you only do it when you have a hand, they do this. So you got to find spots that are actually 3-bet bluff spots to kind of balance out that opportunity. So we're in the dealer button. He bets 2 cents. To me, that says he's on like a flush draw, or he might have a pair of 3s. So we're going to see what he does when we raise. Okay. Definitely going to fold, and the ace of clubs is not a great card for us. We're just going to call there. We're just going to call here as well. And now he bets out 29 cents. I'm pretty sure he just hit his flush. I mean, the 2 cents, calling the big bets, it just means he probably hit his hand there. It just really smelled like a flush draw the entire way. So I'm going to fold. Now the key is the ups and downs of poker are going to be somewhat divorced from the reality of your good or bad decisions. Here we've got top pair and a gut shot. So this is a very good flop for us. Unfortunately, it's not a flop where where he can continue with a lot. So I'm going to bet a little bit higher, because the things that he can call with, like an 8 or a 7. And the things that he can't call with, he just can't call with. So if I bet half the pot or a third of the pot, he's calling or not calling no matter what. Here we've got top pair. It's a 4-handed pot. It's not all that dry of a flop. I mean, not all that wet of a flop. It's pretty dry. I'm going to go ahead and bet here because he's usually got higher cards. And, okay, now he's check raising. It's a pretty dry board. He's check raising. I mean, he's not representing much that we beat. We've got top pair, second kicker. It's really not a great place for bet, call, and then raise there. So a check raise against 2 people. Not really. He could be doing that with a couple of straight draws or things like that, but I don't see him doing that all that often with straight draws against 2 callers. You know, a bet and a call. And the other aspect of that is, in order to find out if he's really bluffing, we're going to have to fade bets. We're going to take one stab at this one because 5-6 can't win any other way. And as soon as he says, I actually do have a hand, thank you, we're just going to check and fold here. The only way that we can figure out whether he's bluffing, and we're going to check and fold again. Everything that he could have called with on the flop has us beat now. A club hit, a 10 hit, so if he had 10 jack, if he had king jack, and look, yeah, see, he paused for a minute. He's like, how much can I get out of this guy? So he either just hit his straight or flush, I think. Either way, I mean, he could have one pair there, and we don't have him beat. Gonna call here. He seems like a pretty tight player, so he doesn't have ace 10 or king 10 all that often. We've got 2 overcards and a gut shot, so I'm definitely gonna call behind here. And when he checks, I'm definitely gonna bet. This guy, I believe, is loose passive. I have a coded system here. You can see here, we 3-bet him before and got a fold, but that was when he raised an early position. And we noticed that he's tight passive, so ace and queen fits right into his playbook. If it was 3 lower cards, then my 4s wouldn't feel so helpless there. But I just really feel like he has a hand that fits that board really well. Pocket 3s. I raise with all pocket pairs pre-flop. This guy doesn't raise a lot pre-flop. I think he limps in a lot. So I'm just going to fold the queen 10. A lot of people will say, you have to defend your blind, defend your blind, defend your blind. But really, it's not my blind anymore. Once I put it in the pot, it's just 2 cents in the middle. And the question is, do I want to play queen 10 out of position against this? I'm definitely going to 3-bet here. I want to be able to make a big enough pot where if an ace falls and he has something like ace queen and ace jack, I can get a few good bets out of him. Here I'm getting good pot odds, so I'll definitely take that ace. Here I'm going to check call, I believe. If he checks behind, I'm going to bet because I want to see if I can get... he bet almost the whole pot. I think he likes this hand, so I'm just going to fold. But if he checked behind, I was going to bet. I haven't seen that guy raising a lot. If they raise a lot, I tend to 3-bet more with ace queen as a value hand because they're still going to be calling with their aces that I have dominated. But I don't want to get into a huge pot pre-flop with ace queen. Here we're going to look for a flop. Here we're going to bet 6x just to try to get a call from somebody. Check. Okay. Ace queen could be the best hand here. If he checks again, I think I'm going to bet. But if he bets, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do. On this board, we've got middle pair. The only card I'm scared of is if he has a king. If he checks, I think I'm going to check behind. Because if he checks, the only things he's calling with are... oh, and there's 3 people in the pot. Actually, I think I'm going to lean towards betting in this case. Okay, I'm just going to fold here. I know, like, oh, you hit your 9. Why are you folding? Because he's really only betting with a king. He's got me, and this guy hasn't shown strength, but he could do exactly what he did right now in check raise. So I don't see this guy betting with a weaker hand than a pair of 9s. And so he's he's really just got me beat, especially on a board that's that dry. He's not representing anything but a king or maybe pocket jacks, pocket tens. Although I really wouldn't be betting with those either. I would rather check and let somebody else bet their nine. So he check raised. Let's see about watching this hand with a little bit of interest. And then he just checked. I wonder if he has like king queen, because when the ace comes, he slows down. Or maybe he has like a set of deuces or a set of kings and he's trying to get another check raise in. We'll see. If he bets big, I'm leaning towards a pretty strong hand. If he checks again, I'm leaning towards king queen. I don't know why he would check raise king queen on the flop though. He could also have check raised queen jack or queen 10 with a gut shot on the flop. I think I'm going to 3-bet here. Now see, when he raises again, he's got a better hand than ace 10, so I'm just going to fold. Now, in a little bit of a way, that's kind of wasting ace 10, but in another way, I get the information that I need right away. I've already 3-bet him once, small blind, big blind. Let's see if he... Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to bet a third of the pot because it's such a dry flop. I don't see him... Okay, good. He raised. That's what I was looking for. I wanted to induce a raise from him. And so now I'm going to just check call, check call. He could be betting worse aces, or he could be betting, you know, a better hand, or he could be completely bluffing. But the small bet that I started with kind of indicates that I had a weak hand. And so he may have decided to bluff with that. Even though he's tight aggressive, people will try to take advantage of you when you bet like a small bet. And now if he bets again here with 3 flush cards out there, we have to ask, what did he raise with on the flop that now thinks it's still the best hand when the runner spades come? Okay, so yeah, the raise and the bet... I kind of induced him to value bet with a worse hand. We got pocket queens here. I'll just give up on that hand. I'm definitely going to 3-bet and call off with that hand. Fold that. Just took the blinds with pocket kings there. Let's see if we can do the same thing. Ace is the worst card to come for us. But we're still going to check because I think he could float and try to bet and just barrel off with a lot of hands. If he hit his ace, that's fine. Just kind of how it happens. Okay, we've got a queen, but it's not a great board for us, and he bets out. Ace 10. Okay. Yeah, that's just how it happens. We played the hand pretty correctly, and here, okay, gonna call that. Probably gonna 3-bet here. Here against somebody. I think I'm gonna call one more. And if he checks, I'm gonna check behind. If he bets, I've got a really tough decision, because he has to be betting a flush draw here in order for this to so here, let's see, 94 into 217, I'm getting about 2 to 1. I don't see him betting with worse too often. Alright, let's just fold that. Here, anything he can call with, he can call a big bet. So, yeah. So, let's look at a couple of things. First, the scorecard. We're going to be down to about 80. Yeah. Still up just... No. We're down about 20 cents overall. And that is okay. That's one thing. I never know where to put this bar. Maybe I'll just put it on the bottom. So we'll drop this down. Raise? No, I don't want it there. I don't know where to put it. I've been dealing with this problem. King Jack is not a great hand against an early position raise. If it were suited, then I could call. But I'd actually be more happy calling with something like 8-9 suited instead of King Jack suited, because you're a lot less likely to be dominated when you have a hand like 8-9 suited. You know, hands like Ace Jack, Ace King, Ace Queen show up a lot more often than hands like Ace 10 or, you know, Ace 7. Here, we're not going to 3-bet. We've got position. We've got a good hand. We're definitely going to call on the flop here. We're going to kind of tank for a second before we call to see if we can get him to bet on another street. Now we are open-ended, so we're definitely calling. And here, I think a 6 or a 7 could call. So I'm going to bet for value. And he doesn't have either one of those. So again, we've got the offsuit king queen. Against these two tighter players, I don't know, it becomes a little bit more difficult to figure out what we want to do. I think I am going to 3-bet. If he 4-bets, I'm going to fold. If he calls, I'm likely ahead of his range. And this is a pretty good flop to continue on. He might actually fold an ace here. So we don't know exactly what hand he had, but you know, the only times that that bet is actually profitable, in other words, it gains us something, is when we fold a hand that had more equity than us. And so he had to have some kind of pocket pair or an ace in order for that actually to be a bluff. But the other thing it does gain us, even in hands where we're way ahead of him, he still has 24% of the hand going to the flop and the river. So, you know, if we check and he checks and another card comes off, 14% of the time, so he has about 28% of the hand going to the flop and river. 14% of the time, he's going to end up hitting a hand and it's going to beat us because we don't have anything and he doesn't have anything. So when you add up all of that potential of first maybe folding a hand like pocket deuces where they're way ahead of us, but they can't really call a bet on any flop that they don't hit. Um, and we're definitely going to hit here. The implied odds are really good. If the original raiser bets and there's a fold, I'm going to call because he could be betting with a lot of cards here. You're going to see about seeing a flop here. But since there's a call, somebody has a pocket pair and it's probably bigger than ours. 5-7. We've got 2 overcards and some runners. So definitely worth calling here. You know, we could have a lot of good cards come. 3 is not one of them, so if he bets again, I'm just going to fold. Especially considering there was another caller. And here, this is a great hand for 3 betting. Because it's one of those hands that you can get away from, but it does also have some equity if you get called. So 3 betting, you know, to defend your blinds with King 5 is a lot better than doing it too often with King Queen or King Jack or Ace Queen, because those are, well, not so much Ace Queen, but those are hands that you could end up, the hand is strong by itself. And so you don't need to overplay it to make it worth anything. Whereas when you have King 5, it's not really all that strong a hand. It's actually a fairly weak hand. And so using it to kind of bluff with ends up making your strong hand stronger because you're going to get more action, especially once they find out, oh, he 3-bet me and then he had King 5. You know, aces, I don't know what we're going to do. So you're going to end up getting more calls with your better hands because you bluffed with your worse hands. So using them in that way is generally pretty good. We'll see if we can get a call here. I think if he calls, I'm going to go ahead and bet the turn as well, because he could call with a king, and especially the 2 hearts. Any combinations of, especially like, you know, a couple of hearts with a straight draw, things like that. But on the river, now the 9 hit, so we're really only getting calls from kings. I think we'll try a 3rd pot and see if he will call with a king. If he check raises, we got to fold. The aces are just no good. Yep, he had a king. In general, the more hands that they can call with, the less you want to bet. But when you get to a point where the board is very strong and, or sorry, the more hands they can call with, the more you can bet, because they're gonna call with those hands anyway. And there's kind of a balance between, you know, how much can I bet here to get called by enough of the different hands that he could have. And here, once we get a call, we're done with the hand, because he could easily have a king or a 9 and we have 5% equity. And there's, you know, it's just a dry flop, so he has a pair somewhere. Maybe he has an ace, but if he bets with an ace, that's good bluff. Good bluff. Nothing we can do about that. We're not in position, so it's kind of a place where we can just give up the pot. So anyway, the more hands that somebody can call with, usually the more you want to bet, because, you know, it might slice down some of those hands, but at the same time you're getting called with a bigger bet, so you make more money on average. And there's a fine art to betting enough so that you'll get called by the widest part of his range, and at the same time make the most on each individual hand. And so it's a really dynamic problem because it's going to change based on the player type. It's going to change based on their tendencies. There are some people who will call a third of the pot with any pair. And so just bet a third of the pot. You're going to get called with all their pairs. But if you bet a half pot, then it folds out half of their range. Well, this is not a very wet flop. So we're going to see if we can take the pot. This guy's pretty tight, so ace 9 I don't really like against him. Okay, so we got a call. Now this guy seems pretty tight, so I'm thinking he could have ace queen or something here. But he's probably going to call behind with that hand again, considering he just picked up a gut shot. So I think it's better to try and bluff on the river to see if we can fold out some better aces. He's not going to fold out a 10 or any one of those hands. But he may have folded a better hand there. And I think we gave ourselves the best chance to get that fold by checking the turn, because any ace that has us beat is going to call in a lot of cases because they picked up a gut shot and they could say, okay, I've got more outs now and I could still have the best hand, and they would have had the best hand. Also, a lot of pocket pairs, things like that. They might have folded the turn, but they're going to fold the river as well. We've got pocket or ace king, and so we're going to 3-bet. It's a good place to 3-bet because we're 3-handed, and they're like, what's this guy, you know? Is he just making a move because we're 3-handed? And, you know, he knows I'm betting light. I think I've seen this guy at the table for a while, so I kind of don't like ace 9 against him. On this particular website, at this particular level of play, or, you know, small and big blinds, and also level of play, suited king is pretty good on the button, just to try to steal the blinds, and you have a lot of equity. I think I'm just gonna check fold here. I don't want to try to bet when he's in position. I could have tried to lead out, but really I'm only trying to get aces to fold, and you know, it's just not the greatest spot. Definitely gonna raise queens. Definitely gonna raise 7-6 of diamonds. And this is mainly because we got tighter players here. I'm definitely gonna bet this flop because if we hit a 4, I want to have a little bit of a bigger pot to see if I can stack him. Also, you know, we could get a queen to fold, a king to fold, maybe. Not a lot of aces are going to fold this flop, but we almost certainly got him to fold a better hand there. You have to be slightly more aggressive when you have a hand that doesn't have a lot of equity, in order to make up for the fact that you're opening a hand that's not quite as good. You want to bluff just a little bit more. You don't want to be bluffing a lot more because, and this is one of those hands, ace 4. I don't really care if I get 4-bet and have to fold this hand. Too bad. I mean, I could try to check there, but I c-bet so much that if I check, it actually looks stronger. And I think that this guy's good enough where he might pick up on that, because I see him around quite a bit. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to try to check raise. because we have top 2 pair. And it's still a pretty dry flop. I don't see him having a lot. He could have tried to float, and this could be a bluff. He could have ace 10, ace jack, and maybe call here. So we're definitely going to see what he says. You know, does he have a good hand or does he not? Here, the only hand that's really beating us is ace king. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to shade it a little bit smaller because I want to try to get ace jack or ace queen to call. And if he shoves, then we gotta call. The pot odds are too good. You see, he's thinking about it. That means I sized it pretty good. And he called. If he's thinking about it and then he calls, that's what you want. You want him to like, oh, I really don't want to be calling. Okay, I did. And then, you know, hopefully not win the hand at that point. But he's not going to win the hand when he's sitting there tank calling. You don't want him to snap call because then you're like, okay, that decision was too easy. Unless you like leveled him, you bet like a super huge, and he's like, that's got to be a bluff, snap call, and then that's awesome. This guy, I'm just gonna call because against his range, I don't particularly like tens, and now like every hand that could have bet has me beat. So let's see. I believe I raised pre-flop here. 2 aces makes me want to call more than 1 ace, but I just don't see his pre-flop betting range to be with that board. I think he just has me beat too often. Let's see. He called the flop. He checked behind on the turn. Let's see if we can get a call from like ace 10, ace 7. We're not betting too much, but when he raises here, I'm just not beating anything ever. And I think he has a heart. So let's check the scoreboard. I think we're back up into the 82 range. Let's go ahead and see. Yeah, it's not bad. We haven't won any big pots. We haven't really lost any big pots either. Just kind of been playing a little bit of poker. Little bit of poker. Chipping up real slow. Let's get that. And, oh, actually, if I drop this down, then I can do that. Okay. That's the solution I found earlier. Okay, this guy donks out, which I remember he was on another table with me and didn't really do that all that much. So I'm going to call the flop, but I actually kind of read this as strong. If he bets big again, there's a lot of players where I would read that as weak, like a flush draw or something like that. Okay, now when he checks, now things change just a little bit. You know, it could be a weak jack or something like that. So we're going to see if we can get some value. And then if, and possibly a heart. He could have 2 hearts. And so what we're going to do here. Okay, he just told me he has a 9. So what does he have, like 7, 9 of hearts or something? Where he had a gut shot with a heart draw? I don't think he's ever bluffing here. Now, one of the things that you may notice, like, you know, I'm losing a lot of hands and I'm winning a few hands. Here, I like to check behind with middle pair, but he could be calling with, you know, flush draws and straight draws. So I'm going to go ahead and bet. Okay. Now I'm definitely going to bet again. And I'm going to bet 2/3 of the pot because the only hands that I'm weak against are straight and flush draws. So I want to make sure and maximize my return against those hands. He just bet out, and now I have effectively the nuts. And I'm definitely going to raise the turn here. I'm going to raise too big, I don't think. Let's go for 28 cents. Because I want to get any drawing hands again. Here, 42 cents. I'm putting 24 into 87. I could be behind. He could have a drawing hand. So I think I'm going to call and I'm going to reevaluate. Here, if he bets, I'm just going to have to fold. Because I don't see him betting with a hand that I can beat. So I checked behind on the flop there. I don't really like folding 2-pair, but I just don't see it. He check raised the turn, and I just think he has like a made straight here. And here, I'm going to bet bigger. Because if he can call, he's got such a narrow range of cards that can call. But they all include like pocket pairs and stuff like that. Or maybe an ace. And he went ahead and folded. So, you know, it doesn't really matter how much I bet there. He can either call or not. He may call with an ace in the case where I bet a little bit less. Let's see if he'll go all in. Oh, he just called. So now we just go all in. $3.81. Good place to set mine. We hit a set on a really ocean wet board. This is not the most fun hand ever. It's not too often that you flop a set and you're like, ooh, I don't like it. But I'm still going to check raise and look to get it all in because people can call with one club. They can call with a straight draw. They can call with a made straight, and I'm still not doing too terribly badly. Here I'm going to raise big, and you know, it's one of those places where it's not like you want them to fold when you have a set, but you're not extremely happy to get it all in either. Now here, I want to give them odds to try to draw to their hand. So I'm still going to bet, hoping that somebody calls with a club. There's only 2 outs that can beat me if I'm not behind already. So if somebody, you know, doesn't have, or if somebody doesn't have a straight flush, or if they do have a straight flush, I'm already dead. But I'm still getting all in. And if they don't have a straight flush, there's only 2 outs that can beat me. So I'm not really all that. I'm not all that unhappy to try and give them odds to draw to a hand that will then pay me off on the river. See, the 8 is what helped this guy. So he had a club. He was drawing dead, but he paid off on the turn and hit enough of a hand on the river to actually pay me more. Whereas if I bet more on the turn against his particular hand, I'm not doing all that well because he's just going to fold. So in this case, King 7. I don't particularly like the hand, but you know, on the dealer button, people can raise a lot. So I'm going to call with King Jack. This is one of those places where I've got enough sitting behind, especially with 2 players, where I can see if I can hit a flop in some way, like trip 9s or something like that. Okay. I've got a gut shot. potential for an overcard. Everybody checked on the flop. This is a good place to bet. I might end up folding. A king is probably going to be good on the river. An 8 or a spade is almost definitely good. And the ace of spades is almost definitely good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to... There's a lot of different ways I could try and play this. I'm seeing if I can induce a raise. Yeah, like so. And I'm going to, of course, raise him. That worked out well. I'm almost getting too much stuff to like talk about. Raise here, do this here. Okay, so we got a raise and a 3-bet. We don't want to put in a lot with pocket deuces pre-flop. Here I'm just going to check behind because he's either ahead or behind. If he checks again, I think I'm going to bet because he could fold out a lot of pocket pairs. Here I'm going to call because if he does have a pocket pair, he's likely to check the river. If he bets again like he did, can't really do much about it. So he's just got a better hand. He might have a king, might have an ace. And he's not going to be folding. So, I mean, we can raise all we want, but it's just going to look like we're bluffing. So we don't want it to look like we're bluffing when we actually are. Definitely a good place to c-bet there. It's a little bit of a wetter board than I usually c-bet, but I do have a piece of it. So here, I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to check raise him. And the reason is, I'm going to change to a check fold. I don't know why, it just felt like he likes his hand a little bit more. Okay, good. Oh! Now this is a great spot to check behind. Like, okay, first of all, I sat there and raised big pre-flop, right? And then I sat there. Now in this case, I definitely want to raise because he could be drawing. If he has a diamond, I don't want to give him odds. And I'm going to bet this. It's too bad I got to raise him. Okay, so he bet. Here I'm going to bet. He raised. I do have a gut shot. But I'm getting 5-1. Let's see. He could have an overcard. An overpair. I think I'm going to go ahead and check fold on this turn. Here, I'm going to bet again. Just because I have aces. I don't know. It's possible it was better to check behind on that turn because I'm not getting value from worse and I could induce some bluffs. But really, if he's calling out of position, he probably has a hand anyway. And, you know, I don't really need to induce bluffs at that point. And I might get some value from some other hands. All in for 40 cents. Definitely going to call. Yeah, see, we've got the better odds. Now, this is where a lot of people get, like, messed up about poker. They're like, oh, man, we were 63% to win that hand, 66%, whatever. Um, and we lost. Man, he called with ace 8, went all in, and we lost. And then they get all torn up about it, and then it affects their decisions for the next, like, 50 hands that they play, and they end up losing $100 because they lost one hand. Um, well, that's something that I had to get over in my poker mini career. I don't even know what you could call it. A career, mini career. I have no idea what it is, but whatever this is, I had to understand that um, you have to divorce the results of any one hand. And I'm gonna bet out here because I don't like this flop, and I do have something. He may call with an ace. He may call with two hearts. I just don't like him checking behind. He'll check behind with a lot of hands that may fold or may end up calling. In this case, the deuces you really don't want to raise because you're not getting value. But depending on if I get two callers, I can definitely call. King 10 offsuit, good try on the stealing the blinds. Ace 4, I'm going to fold simply because I have too many hands going on at the same time. And this, I'm getting enough odds where if I hit my set, I have the possibility of getting paid off with enough to justify it. I'm going to c-bet here because it's a dry flop. Could get folds. Anybody calls, and I took my stab. I'm good to go. This is a small enough... Okay, so we've got 3 checks. But really, I'm still just going to check behind. I'm not going to try and take a stab at this, because I'm only getting called with a better hand. And here I'm just going to fold. There's no reason to get involved. So, let's see. Oh, my sons are going to be home soon. So, oh no, they're not. They're not. They will not be home soon. They have chess club today. But I'll tell you what, I think now is a good time to leave off for the day. I hope you have enjoyed this foray into the science and art that is poker.